In today's world, where access to knowledge is often limited and freedom of expression is constantly threatened, the stories of individuals like Frederick Douglass and Yeonmi Park, along with the critiques of censorship by scholars like Alan M. Dershowitz, serve as poignant reminders of the transformative power of education and the necessity of protecting free speech. This essay delves into how education empowers individuals to break chains of expression and the critical importance of safeguarding freedom of expression against censorship by both social media platforms and governments.
Education has long been recognized as a powerful tool for liberation, enabling individuals to challenge oppressive systems and advocate for change. Frederick Douglass's journey to literacy serves as a prime example of this. Born into slavery in Maryland in the early 19th century, Douglass defied the laws that forbade slaves from learning to read and write. Through sheer determination and secretive efforts, Douglass taught himself to read and write, gaining access to knowledge that ultimately transformed his perception of freedom. Education empowered Douglass to resist his oppression and advocate for the abolishment of slavery, as evidenced by his powerful speeches and writing.
Similar to Douglass, Yeonmi Park escaped from an oppressive land in 2007, the country of North Korea. It's a nation completely isolated from the rest of the world. Their people have no contact with the outside world, they have limited internet access, and they can't leave. Her escape from the country demonstrates power of education in challenging oppressive governments. Growing up in North Korea, Park was subjected to propaganda from a young age. Her worldview was shaped largely by the oppressive regime. However, upon escaping, exposure to outside information and education opened Park's eyes to the reality of oppression in her country. As Park states, she did not know what freedom of speech or human rights were. They were completely isolated and brainwashed into believing that their leaders were gods. But after escaping to China and eventually South Korea, she realized the power of freedom and expression.
Another example of an oppressive government that holds the people under their influence with the help of censorship is none other than the former communist Russia. Taking a look at the poster found in Moscow, the text roughly translates to "Knowledge will break the chains of slavery." To let you get a better understanding of why Russia sucked at the time, here is what the rest of Europe in comparison looked like. It had a booming economy, while Russia was kind of stagnant. As you can see, Russia was nearly a century behind the rest of Europe, both technologically and culturally. So after being humiliated in the Great War, going through a couple of years of the revolution of the Bolshevik Communist Party had taken over. They censored literature such as the press, ads, product labels, and books. Freedom of speech was suppressed and dissent punished. Independent political activists were not tolerated, whether they were involved in free labor unions, private corporations, independent churches, or opposition political parties. All of this was under the vision to create a utopian nation. But there was many problems such as economic struggle, starvation, housing, and had the freedom of education and expression been preserved in both the Soviet Union and North Korea, it is likely that these governments would have been toppled years before the late 20th century by uprisings and revolutions.
Despite the transformative power of education, the threat of censorship looms large, both in the form of government restrictions and the selective censorship practiced by social media platforms. Alan M. Dershowitz's critiques of censorship sheds light on the dangers posed by efforts to suppress free speech, whether imposed by governments or social media giants. Censorship undermines the fundamental right to freedom of expression, stifling dissent and perpetuating oppression. In the digital age, social media platforms play a significant role in shaping public discourse. However, their selective censorship practices raise concerns about the erosion of freedom of expression. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube face the problem of balancing the need to combat misinformative and with the preservation of free speech. While some argue for the removal of content deemed false or offensive, others caution against the dangers of censorship and the potential for abuse.
In conclusion, the stories of Frederick Douglass, Yeonmi Park, and the critiques of censorship by Alan M. Dershowitz underscore the profound impact of education in empowering individuals to break chains of oppression and the critical importance of safeguarding freedom of expression against censorship. Education serves as a catalyst for liberation, enabling individuals to challenge oppressive systems and advocate for change. However, the threat of censorship looms large, threatening to undermine the very freedoms we hold dear. It is imperative that we remain vigilant in defending freedom of expression and promoting access to knowledge for all. Only then can we truly realize the promise of empowerment and liberation for all individuals, regardless of their circumstances.